Welcome, everyone. It is November the 22nd today, 18th of Kislev, Parshat Vayeshev 2021. Vayeshev, I want to say it's the best Parsha in the entire Torah. It's my Bar Mitzvah Parsha. I know this Parsha very, very well. Um, we, uh, we're going to go right into it. This Parsha contains many, many different stories in it. In the past, I focused on things like the Potiphar story and last year we talked about Jacob and the inconsolable Jacob. He was inconsolable at the report of Joseph's um, the alleged loss of Joseph, and we talked about that. I want to focus today on the opening of the Parsha, the first chapter of the Parsha. There's so much information in that, in the first few verses. We're going to look at the first few verses in a little bit of depth, and then we're going to kind of gloss over the dreams, uh, and then focus in on when Jacob dispatches Joseph. And here, I think the goal that I want to establish is, what is Joseph looking for? What does Jacob want from Joseph? And what's going on here? I think when we look deeply at these verses and this text, we're going to get just so many different layers of this story. And as I guess has been the theme of these classes, there is material mentioned in the verses that reveals, some basic information. But when you look at what the verses are saying and how they're saying it and how they are connected to other verses within the Torah itself, other texts, a bigger, fuller, richer, more colorful picture emerges. And that essentially is the way to study the Torah. The Torah doesn't come only with, just what it tells you. It comes, you're reading the entire Torah all the time. That's how you read the Torah. You're reading the Torah in the context of everything before and after, and you're also reading the Torah and interpreting it in light of other commentaries and in light of tradition. Something that we're doing less of. I'm not, heavily dependent on the traditions of commentary in this class. I'm not looking at those, but we've looked at them in the past. So let's go right into it. I'm going to start with the text. Here we go. Microsoft Word, Joseph. Okay, so for the sake of time, I'm going to do this in Hebrew and English. It's Vayeshev Yaakov be'eretz migurei aviv be'eretz Canaan. Okay? Vayeshev Yaakov means, and Jacob dwelled. Jacob dwelled, Vayeshev Yaakov, be'eretz migurei aviv, in the land of the sojournings of his father, be'eretz Canaan, in the land of Canaan. Now, the reason why I have each of these phrases blocked out is because they don't occur in a vacuum. Vayeshev Yaakov occurs.
You're muted.
I'm muted. I don't know what just happened. I'm okay now?
Yeah.
Okay. Sorry about that. Things happen. Here we go. So back to Vayeshev Yaakov. Vayeshev Yaakov. So the reason why I have this blocked is because this term Vayeshev, the word Vayeshev, actually occurs with reference to other people in the Torah, specifically in Genesis. It is similar to other terms which occur also several times, and the fact that it occurs several times basically says to the reader, pay attention here. Pay attention. It's not an accident, and it's a deliberate choice of words here that is being used. And so I've said here that the term occurs 3 times with each patriarch, which itself is fascinating. And what the pattern is also very fascinating. It occurs with non-patriarchal characters, namely Cain, Lot, Ishmael, and Esav, and I will show you what that means now. I have here another file. Okay, do you all see this character, text, and comment? Yes? Okay, you got it?
Oh.
So with Abraham, the term Vayeshev occurs 3 times. We have Vayeshev be'elone mamre. He dwells in Elone Mamre.
We are not seeing what you're
I'm
talking.
sorry. Okay, I'm just going to thank you. I'll try and do this again. Boom. How about this now? How about now?
Mhm.
Okay, so with Abraham, I have three occurrences of the word Vayeshev. He dwells. The first is Vayeshev be'elone mamre. That's when he first came into the land. The first incidents, he dwells in Elone Mamre. It's a very specific locale, Elone Mamre. Asher beChavron, it's in Hebron. The second time that this text is used, Vayeshev, it's Ben Kadesh Uvein Shur. It's after the Sodom and Gomorrah episode, between Kadesh and Shur. It's a little more general. It's a much more regional designation. And then it's Vayeshev Avraham Biv'er Shava. This is after the Akedah. So 3 times the Torah uses this term Vayeshev. First is specific, second is general, third is specific. Look at Isaac. Isaac, 3 times again. Vayeshev Yitzchak im be'er lachai ro'i. So after the death of Abraham, Isaac dwells with the be'er lachai ro'i. And I'm saying that this is a specific location. Vayeshev Yitzchak Bigrar. This is after the famine episode, where Isaac is tempted to go to Egypt, but is told by God to remain in the land, and he stays in the regional area of Gerar. Okay? And in the third instance, it says, Vayenach Misham Yitzchak, after he has a little bit of an incident with Avimelech, and they are jealous of him. He ends up detaching from them, and he goes to a specific location, Vayichan benachal Gerar Vayeshev Sham, and he dwells there. So 3 episodes of Abraham, 3 episodes of Isaac that are talking about dwelling in the land. And here we have Jacob. Jacob dwells with Lavan outside the land. Vayeshev imo chodesh yamim. This is during the story when he runs away. And then our pasuk in this parsha, Vayeshev Yaakov be'eretz megurei aviv be'eretz Canaan, in the land of his father, sojourning in the land of Canaan. It designates the whole land. And then Vayeshev Yisrael be'eretz Mitzrayim be'eretz Goshen. After he descends to Egypt, he lives in the land of Egypt, in the land of Goshen. Okay? I just as a matter of contrast, I want to show the non-patriarchal. Vayeshev be'eretz Nod. Cain, after the killing of Abel, dwells in the land of Nod, east of Eden. Lot, Vayeshev b'ma'ara, hu u'shtei v'notav. Lot, after the destruction of Sodom, he lives in a cave. And then Ishmael, Vayeshev b'midbar, he lives in the desert. And then it says Vayeshev b'midbar paran. Esav, Vayeshev Esav behar Seir, he lives in Mount Seir. And then Joseph, Vayeshev Yosef b'Mitzrayim, hu uvet aviv. Joseph dwells in Egypt. So here's my summary. You have a pattern that develops. Abraham, specific, regional, specific. Isaac, specific, regional, specific. Jacob, regional, regional, regional. Those are the 3 patriarchs. And so you can see, it's very interesting when you put this, what we have opening up our Parsha in the context of the whole Torah, in the context of Breshit really, you see that as far as the patriarchs are concerned, Abraham, it's talking about a specific, a region, a specific, a region, a specific. And then for Jacob, we have another story. So this cues us to, and then I'll just go to the non-patriarchal. Cain is all, somewhere. Lot is tiny, tiny place in a cave. He's got nowhere to live. He's in a cave, but that's where he dwells. And that's the Torah's way of saying He's a nothing, okay? Ishmael, a wide, expansive place. Esav, a wide, expansive place. And Joseph in the land of Egypt. So the non-patriarchal nature of those characters is only referenced by one dwelling, okay? But the patriarchs seem to have three dwellings each, and I think that is very, very significant, okay?
Right.
All right, I'm going to stop here and get a question here or observation. All right, my point is that the patterning of that kind of narrative actually teaches us a different story and makes us focus on a different story. And that story is the land itself and what those patriarchs' role is in the land. Abraham is coming to the land. He dwells in one specific place and then a region and then in one specific place. Isaac basically following the same pattern, but Jacob is different. Why is Jacob different? Because the biography of Jacob, already we know, is he's born in the land, he goes to another land, so his first dwelling is outside the land, his next dwelling is inside the whole land, and his third dwelling is outside the land. Okay? First dwelling is in the north, second dwelling in the land, third dwelling in the south in Egypt. Okay? And so what the Torah is telling us by using this kind of this phrase and by very, I think, highly elaborate patterning, which I've kind of pulled out from these different contexts, 3, 3, and 3, it basically tells us a story about the relationship with the land. And that Jacob's relationship with the land is different from that of Abraham and Isaac. In fact, we could argue that they're all different, and this may not be anything new that anyone is hearing here, because Abraham is promised the land, comes and migrates to the land. Isaac dwells in the land, and Jacob will go outside the land, he was born in the land, go outside the land, spend some time in the land, and leave it outside the land, and then die outside the land. And his life in the land, as far as it goes on now, is now intertwined with the life of Joseph. And that is what the Torah is going to tell us in the very next pasuk. Just a second. Okay, and I will get to that by pulling up this window, and I will show you. Okay. So then it says as follows. So I have Migurei Aviv, in the land of his sojourning, makes us reflect on the different localities of his father and Abraham. How many places are named in their stories? Lots and lots of different places in the land of Canaan. It points us to the central narrative arc in the life of Jacob, born inside the land, leaves the land, dwells with Lavan. Here he dwells in the land, but will end up dwelling and dying in Egypt. This is the second of the three dwellings for Jacob. Then, Ele Toldot Yaakov Yosef. This is in a string of verses along the pattern, but the crucial difference here is that the verse shifts from Jacob to Joseph. Okay, I will. So the verses are Ele Toldot Yaakov Yosef, and here I'm going to show you this, and this is something that I've been focusing on from the beginning of our reading of this year. I'm focused on the patterns here. And we have the repetition of the names with regard to the words Ele Toldot. Ele Toldot Noach, Noach. Ele Toldot Shem, Shem. Ele Toldot Terach, Terach. Ele Toldot Yitzchak ben Avraham, Avraham. Ele Toldot Yaakov, Yosef. And so if you look carefully at this, the way that this pattern develops, we have, these are the generations of Noah. Noah was a righteous person. This is the line of Shem. Shem was 100 years old. This is the line of Terach. Terach begat Avram. This is the line of Isaac ben Abraham. Abraham begot Isaac. And this is the story of Jacob, Joseph. And so what this is teaching us in a very subtle way, probably too subtle to really explain without kind of getting the aha, and you get it. It's like, okay, So every time the Torah is shifting our focus and telling us a generational story, or this is the story, and repeating the name of the person, we're getting the most important fact about that individual. Noach was a righteous person. Shem was 100 when he had Arpachshad. His old age of being 100 was important in his story. Terach, the most important thing about Terach as far as we're concerned is that he begot Abram. The most important thing about Isaac is that he's Isaac's son of Avram, and that Avram was his father. That is the central part of the story. And now everything shifts. This is different, because if it followed the pattern, it should have said, Ele toldot Yaakov, Yaakov, right? It should have, all in each one of these occurrences, the name of the principal is mentioned twice. Noach, Noach, Shem, Shem, Terach, Terach, Avram, Avram. So we would expect it to be Yaakov, Yaakov. But it's like a setup and a punchline. The Torah has set us up, and now, surprise, Jacob's story is now shifting to Joseph. And that's exactly what the Torah is trying to do here. By reading this carefully, we're getting a very important message. The message is, folks, everything changes now. Instead of focusing on Jacob, we are focusing on Joseph. Joseph, which is located in the larger story of Jacob. Just if you examine the architecture of the book of Genesis, you'll see now that we are in the last four parshas of Genesis. Vayeshev, Miketz, Vayigash, and Vayechi. But before the four parshas of Genesis, the end, that deal with Joseph, we have three parshiot that deal with Yaakov. Toldot, which is the transition parsha between Yitzchak and Yaakov. You have Toldot, which I guess is a Yitzchak parsha. Then Vayetze, which is definitely a Yaakov parsha. And Vayishlach, which is definitely a Yaakov parsha. So you have essentially Vayetze, Vayishlach, Vayeshev, Miketz, Vayigash, Vayechi, 6 parshas dedicated fully to the story of Jacob, the last 4 of which locate the story of Joseph within the larger story of Jacob, 6.5 if you include half of Toldot, okay? And that is basically close to half of the book of Genesis, okay? So the shift is done with the code in the text itself, by saying Ela toldot Yaakov Yosef. It's like saying there's a big space between Yaakov and Yosef, and that it's like putting a big space. That's what it's saying. This is the story of Jacob. It's Joseph now from here on in. Okay, I'm going to stop here and take any observations or questions or whatever you got there. Anybody got anything? What's that? Okay, sorry. Okay, go ahead. Marlene, go ahead.
Is the emphasis on the Toldot part? In the first fathers, these are the generations. Now all of a sudden it's shifted, although it uses the word Toldot, we're going to specifically watch what's going on as opposed to just name them all.
Toldot is a signal. The word Toldot is a signal that you're going to get a story now. It could be a story in the case of Shem, Noach, Noach, Shem, and Terach. It's the story of who they beget. Okay, in the case of Isaac and now Jacob, it's the story. It's like it's a story of what is going to unfold. It's a narrative. So the word Toldot and Ela Toldot signifies. It's like the bracket that begins a story. It's like, here begins a story, and this is the main part of the story. The main part of the story is the begettings, but it's the Bible's. It's almost, it's a formulaic story opening. We in English say once upon a time. So the listener from the very earliest age, when you were able to comprehend the language, you got that once upon a time cues you into a story. Okay? To the Hebrew ear, Ele Toldot is virtually equivalent to that. It signals to the reader a story is unfolding. And it could be a very short story relating to specifically genealogy, or it could be a very long story that is now dealing with the unfolding of the saga of Joseph. That's what's going on here. Okay? All right. We go on. Joseph. Not this one. Sorry. There you go. How about this one? Okay, here we go. Here we go. Okay, so we have just spent some time on this phrase, Elo Toldo Yaakov Yosef, Ben Shva Esrei Shana. He was 17 years old. What does that mean? Well, he's young. It locates him in the life of Jacob. How old is Jacob now? We'll find out in a second how old Jacob is. And it becomes a symmetry bracket in Jacob's life, because Jacob lives in Egypt 17 years. When we get to Vayechi, we'll see that Jacob lives. The Torah tells us specifically that Jacob lived 17 years. So we have the storyteller is putting a little symmetry in the story, which makes the story beautifully told. But for those of us who get into the weeds a little bit, we recall that Jacob is 147 years old when he dies. And 147, as you recall, is 7 times 7 times 3, which is 7 squared times 3, and makes us remember that Isaac's age is 6 times 6 times 5, 180, 6 squared times 5, and that Abraham's age is 5 times 5 times 7. 5 squared times 7, 6 squared times 5, and 7 squared times 3. These are the ages of the patriarch, and if I'm able to discern that pattern, then I guess, someone smarter than, it's pretty clear that there's a pattern going on here. What does it mean? It means that the Torah is constructed in chronologically in a discernible pattern of ages, which makes it elegant. Okay, so it all kind of fits together nicely. And what we have here is that the 17 years that Joseph exists is balanced by 17 years at the end of Jacob's life. So what it's really saying is that Jacob's life, as we know it in this part, is bracketed by the birth and, quote, death of Joseph, and then the restoration of Joseph and the return to his descent to Egypt. So you have 17 years with Joseph at the end of Jacob's life, and 17 years with Joseph, not at the beginning of Jacob's life, obviously, but at the beginning of this phase of his life. Okay. Then it tells us, Haya ro'eh et echav batzon. He was shepherding with his brothers the sheep. That's an awkward translation. He shepherded the sheep with his brothers, but the Torah's it's kind of much more subtle here. Ro'eh techav has a certain ring to it, means that he's also not shepherding with his brothers, he's shepherding his brothers. It means that he's kind of looking out at them. What it tells us even in this little fragment is that there is a differentiation between Joseph and the brothers. Joseph is one of many shepherds, and he's shepherding it's Joseph and the group. Joseph is outside the group of the brothers. Okay? V'hu na'ar et b'nei Bilha v'et b'nei Zilpa neshei aviv. And here it gets interesting. So already we know that he's differentiated because he's separate from his brothers. And then there's a subgroup among the brothers that he is a na'ar with. And this again is also a very peculiar phrase. What does it mean? He is with them. He is youthful with them. He kind of watches them. He plays with them, or he observes them, or he protects them, or there are all sorts of aspects of this relationship. Hunar b'nei Vilav b'nei Zilpa neshei aviv. He is spending time with the sons of Bilhah and Zilpah. Why? Bilhah, Rachel's servants, who are her sons? Dan and Naphtali. Zilpah, Leah, it's Gad and Asher. The 6 sons of Judah, the 6 sons of Leah are Reuben, Shimon, Levi, Judah, Issachar, and Zvulun. Okay? So what does this little piece of information tell you in terms of the political structure of the family? And that's really the key point there. What is going on in the political structure of the family if you have 4 wives, and you have the Rachel and the Leah wife and the Bilhah and the Zilpah, okay? So you know already too much. You know that Rachel is the beloved wife, didn't have children. She only had children after the fact, and she's dead. At this point, she's dead. She had 2 children, Joseph and Benjamin, and Rachel's gone, okay? You know that Rachel was given Bilhah and Leah was given Zilpah. And you know that Leah had 6 children, 6 boys and 1 daughter. The daughter is not named here. Okay. So she is the dominant force within the family. Okay. So talk about a dysfunctional family where the beloved wife, Rachel, is no longer, and that the group of Leah tribes, Leah sons, is the dominant power group within the family, except for the fact that the father loved the dead wife and has greater affinity, as we obviously see, to the dead wife's children. So that already creates a tremendous sense of instability within the family structure. On top of that, we had one glossed over event last week, meaning that we didn't deal with it, which is that Reuben, in a very peculiar moment, tries to usurp the paternal bed by sleeping with Bilhah, the concubine of Jacob, who's Rachel's concubine. Okay, he doesn't sleep with Zilpah, his mother's concubine, Leah's maidservant. He sleeps with Bilhah. What is the meaning of Reuben trying to sleep with Bilhah? I'm taking over the father's bed, and I'm rendering Bilhah sexually inaccessible to my father. Because once that illicit union takes place within the structure of the norms of that society, she is no longer available to him. I mean, it does sound very peculiar to a modern ear, a modern sensibility, that the son would cohabit with the father's maidservant in a way to demonstrate, to try and usurp the father's authority. So you see, within the politics, and it's, the micro-politics of this family, that there are different power structures. Any family, by the way, in which you have more than one child, will possibly have, lots of interesting power dynamics and political dynamics in that, whether it's, the alliances and the changing alliances that exist between children. Imagine, this large family where, 6 of these sons have their genetic makeup is linked, and they are basically the sons of one mother, so they have a stronger bond than the other sons. And we are witness to large families now in the religious world. A family of 12 is not unheard of. There are plenty of families of 12. Families of 8 is pretty much the norm at this point. Um, and siblings will make alliances based on age, based on gender, based on interest. In my class on Tuesday last week, I showed there was this lovely video of a girl who left her big family of 8 siblings, and she wishes she had a relationship with them as a non-religious, formerly religious person, um, and how the family reconfigures itself based on that kind of catharsis or that kind of trauma, a trauma where one of the siblings leaves the others. And within the family histories of, I guess, almost every single person here, there could have been these kinds of traumas. Look, if you just dial back a generation or two ago, where people left family from in Europe, there was tremendous upheaval, tremendous dislocation, and the reconfiguring of family dynamics and bonds. You see how complicated the family systems are. Okay, and I would urge you to think about your own family system or reflect on it if you want. I mean, most of us come from smaller families at this point, but even in smaller families, there are always dynamic alliances, change shifting alliances, where one sibling is closer to another sibling during some period, and there's a falling out, and there's a reconfiguration or a reunion, etc. So this is what's happening on the family level here, and it's happening for very specific reasons. It's happening because of the mothers. And now what Joseph is trying to do is Joseph is inserting himself into the family dynamics, because as the oldest child of the beloved mother, he is trying to either look after or observe or be with or ally with the subordinate children, the children of the maidservants, the sons of Bilhah and Zilpah. And the commentators will pick up on this, and they'll say, why is it that he is doing this? It's because the Leah sons are impregnable. It's a unit. They're a clique. You can't break into that group. Okay, and that's the central dynamic of Joseph's life. Is it a dynamic of his making, or is it a dynamic of his father's making? Right? Is he responsible because he's a kind of, we'll see as as the story unfolds, he's a bratty kind of kid, right? Is that because of him, or is it because his father had unequal love of the different spouses, and certainly didn't love Leah? His beloved Rachel is gone, and the two concubines are essential. One of them is no longer accessible to him, so he's only got Leah and Zilpah basically as the wives. Is that enough for him? He hates, he doesn't like Leah, and he probably doesn't care for Zilpah.
He didn't care for them for 12 times.
He didn't care for the 20. As you know, it doesn't really. You don't need to care.
Rabbi, when we saw the story of Sarah and Hagar, she wanted the child of Hagar to be known as her child.
Yes.
Does that have anything to play here with Bilhah and Zilpah? Do those children get their zechut, their honor, from being with the real wife as opposed to being a concubinish wife, mother?
They want to be they want to be part of the larger group. Certainly, the Bilhah tribes, Dan and Naphtali, are allied with Rachel, and the Zilpah tribes, Gad and Asher. I'm sorry, is it Gad and Gad and Asher? They want to be with the Leah group. Okay, but even the Leah group ostracizes the Zilpah group, and certainly ostracizes the Bilhah group. The Leah group wants to be its own little team. Okay, and that's the primary fault line within the family, that there are 6 boys on one side and 6 boys on the other, 2 from Bilhah, 2 from Zilpah, 2 from Rachel, and they constitute 2 basic factions. And the Leah tribe, since it's 6 from 1 as opposed to 6 from 3, uh, will ultimately be a stronger faction. Okay, and within that faction, and we won't go into it here, but you'll be able to see that within the Leah faction there is a rivalry between Reuben and Judah. Reuben is the firstborn, so the natural authority should go to Reuben, but you can see very clearly on as the story unfolds that Judah is the one that is the most influential of all of the brothers. Now, John, you raised your hand there. Go ahead.
There may have been factions, I think, but when it came after the rape of Dinah, they all seemed to get together to massacre their neighbors.
That's a good point. But it's Shimon and Levi that are in the lead there. The Torah there doesn't really go into the other who participated in the other among the other brothers. And when it comes to recalling this event, that Jacob will recall this event in his blessing to them on his deathbed, he will basically castigate Shimon and Levi. So the main perpetrators of that are the ringleaders of that massacre are Shimon and Levi, and the rest of them they're following orders. they're not the principals in that. Okay, but it is and while it is an interpretive step to say, was Joseph involved in it? I doubt it, because he's a young boy, right? He's not even like during the rape of Dinah. He's 17 years old, so he's younger than all the others. He's certainly younger than Reuben, Shimon, Levi, and Judah, who are the 4 oldest, who are probably well in their 20s at that point. But Joseph, nah. Joseph would have been just a kid, wouldn't be able to pick up a sword. Okay, all right. So we go on. We're going to go on into the text here. I'm going to read over. I'm going to do this in Hebrew, and I'll give you my flowing translation, and then I'm going to focus on one little moment and have some illustrations there, and by then, unfortunately, we will be. Okay.
What does it say?
Here we go. So Vayave Yosef et dibatam ra'ah el avihem. Joseph was the tattletailer of all the dibatam ra'ah, all the kind of bad things that the brothers did. Joseph brought to his father, to their father. Their father, Israel, ahav et Yosef mikol banav. And this is the kind of a moment that turns on us. Israel loved Joseph from all the brothers, kivenz kunimu lo, because he was the son of his old age. And the son of his old age, he was 108, if we do the calculations, when Joseph was born. V'asalok tona pasim, he made him a coat of colors. Vayiru echav ki oto ahav aviyeh mikol echav. The brothers saw that Jacob loved Joseph above all of the other brothers, and so vayisnu'u oto. they hated him. V'lo yachlu dabro l'shalom. Jacob loves Ahav Avihem. There's a little play there. Ahav Avihem. Vayisneu. He loves them. We hate him. And now the dreams. Vayachalam Yosef Chalom. Say he dreams a dream. Vayaged lecha vayosivu od tzanoto. And they play on words. Yosef vayosifu od tzano. Right? God, when Rachel named Joseph, it was Yo Asaf Adonai Cherpati. God has gathered up my shame. Yosef li ben acher. He will add another child, another son to me. Here it's Yosef Yosifu od tzanoto. They hate him even more. And he says to them, Shimuna chalam hazeh asher chalamte. Listen to the dream I have. Hine anachnu me'alamim alomim b'tor hasadeh. We're gathering sheaves in the field. V'nei kalma alumati v'gam nitzava. My sheaf got up and stood there. V'nei tezubena alumotechem. Your sheaves surrounded mine. And they bowed down to mine. Hamaloch timloch aleinu. You're going to reign over us. Imashol timshol banu. And I think there's a play on words here because it may not be exactly, but chalom and maloch are anagrams. Homonymic anagrams. That is, chalom is chet le lamed mem, and malach is mem lamed ch, right? It's the same sound, just reversed. So you're going to reign over us. So it's a way of saying we want to turn your dream upside down and make it seem so deplorable that absurd what you're saying. Mashol timshol banu. And there's another play on words there, because mashol means rule over us, but mashal is a parable. So it's almost like saying, are you going to invert the dream upon us by saying that you're going to lord over us, reign over us? And are you going to use us as a parable for your own sense of grandeur? Vayosifu od tzanoto, and they add to their hatred of al chalamotav ve'al devarav, not only for his dreams but for what he says. Second dream, he dreams a second dream. He tells it to his brothers. Vayomer, hine chalamti chalamod, I have dreamed another dream. V'hine, and behold, hashemesh vayarech, the sun and the moon, v'charasar kochavim mishtachavim li, and 11 stars are bowing down to me. He tells his father and he tells his brother. His father rebukes him. And he says to him, what is this dream that you have dreamed? I, your mother, your brothers, to bow to you. Is that what you're saying here? So this is the way that Joseph is stepping over the line by insulting the honor of his father, by saying that his father is going to subordinate himself to him. The brothers were jealous, but it's not only jealous, they are zealous. They're beginning to see, you can see the hatred. Va'aviv shamar davar. And here I would spend a whole class on this verse right here, which is shamar davar. He kept it. He kept score on everybody. Rather than intervening, rather than employing any kind of reconciliation at this point, he keeps this idea. Exactly. All right, now the crisis moment. The brothers go to Shechem. Shechem is where the terrible thing happened. Jacob says to Joseph, your brothers are doing their shepherding in Shechem. Lecha v'eshlachacha aleim. Go, and I will send you to them. And this is a very highly stylized way of talking. It's almost like lech lecha. It's almost like saying, I'm going to send you on a mission. I'm sending you on a mission. And exactly the mission is delineated in the next verse. Lechna re'eh Go and see Shlom Achecha, Shlom Ason. See how your brothers are doing. See how the sheep are doing. See if they're okay. Vashiveni davar, and get back to me. And sends them alone from the valley of Hebron, and they go to Shechem. And here I bolded this verse because this is the theme. A man. We don't know who this man is, but without this man, we have no story. Joseph was wandering in the field. And this man asked him, what do you want? Vayomer, et achai anochi mevakesh. Hagida nali efo him ro'im. So I'm going to stop there. He says, I want my brothers. I'm looking for my brothers. Tell me where they are. Okay? So now, you don't need me to read this in a kind of plaintive vocalization to understand that there's pathos here. So I'm going to get you to explain what the pathos is in that moment. What's going on there? And extrapolate from that moment. And I'm asking you, do you think that defines the whole story or not? What do you think is going on in that moment? Somebody. What does he really want?
He wants to be part of them.
Go ahead, Lila.
He wants to be part of his family, and he's on the outside looking in.
He's from the outside looking in, exactly. Ruth, you also had your hand
I
up.
actually don't see pathos. His father sent him to basically be a snitch, like tell me what's going on. And I think he's just looking, he's going to fulfill the mission. So we asked him to know where they are. I actually don't even see pathos in this sentence. I don't see how he necessarily wants to be a part of them. He wants to check them out, spy.
So the father wants to check him out. So here, this is a good debate to have, which is, on the one hand, I would say, there is plausibility, Ruth, in what you're saying, which is that, he's been dispatched on a mission, okay, and he's not doing anything more than what his father is saying, but the to'eba sadeh is indicative of something, right? He's a 17-year-old boy. His father dispatches him on a mission for the first time. The story that I'm constructing here is, look, his mother's dead. His father is kind of traumatized by that. His father is a complicated emotional creature altogether. Unlike Isaac, who survived the Akedah, and may, I don't want to superimpose too much PTSD on any of these people, but without using the word PTSD, people undergo traumatic events in their life, and they certainly linger on in all of their lives. That of course we all know. Isaac had a traumatic experience at the sacrifice, and had his wife and his family and his own relationship with his father. Jacob was ripped away from his own parents, having to run away for his life. Raised his family, was under difficult, complicated circumstances. Came back. Is he still limping from the wrestling match with the mysterious assailant? There are things, that linger on with him. His wife is dead. His beloved wife is dead. His daughter was raped. His son tried to usurp his paternal bed. And I'm going to just project on this that he's a little protective of Joseph, but he also understands that Joseph's got to get on with it. And he may want Joseph to be connected to the brothers, but he did a poor job by giving Joseph a coat of many colors, by loving Joseph more. He's weak in that way. Ilana, you had your hand up, and then John.
Yeah, two things. First of all, when he's sent by Jacob to find out the peace Shlom, how are they doing? So in what way? How are they doing? Which is not actually indicated here. But also the word mevakesh. Why is it used mevakesh? The person that he meets is asking him, "Ma tevakesh?" What are you requesting? Why doesn't he say, what do you want?
What do you want?
Why is it used mevakesh? And then he's answering את שלום אחי אני מבקש, את אחי.
את
I'm
החיים.
requesting, is he requesting to be part of them? Is he requesting to belong to this group? Is it really?
So you've touched on a really beautiful theme, which is bakesh is different from rotzeh. Bakesh is seeking, right? You know, a familiar occurrence of that word, achat sha'alti meit Adonai ota avakesh. One thing I ask of the Lord, this thing do I seek. Bakesh is there's a yearning for. You know, Shifti bebeit Adonai, you know, let me dwell in the house of the Lord. Or Bakesh Shalom v'radfehu, seek peace and pursue it. And the use of the word Bakesh is really something deep and earnest. And so the guy is, you know, if you were dramatizing this scene, you would see a troubled Joseph, a Joseph who is kind of doesn't know where he's going, and a Joseph that is depressed in a moment of, you know, late adolescent melancholy, highly absorbed in himself, as we of course know from later texts. That part of his personality is going to unfold for us, but also at the moment of his differentiation from the other pack of the brothers. And what he wants desperately is to be connected. John, you want to say something?
Well, this may be far out. I think everything we're hearing is a setup for something terrible that's going to happen.
Yeah.
We have that sense. And when Jacob sends him on the mission, I don't know if Jacob knows it's going to happen, but I think the stranger knows it's going to happen. And when the stranger tells him, or the man, where to go, I think it's part of it's part of the larger story. So I see it as something, we know something terrible is going to happen, and these messages are foretelling that.
Indeed. And so what will happen is that you know, the story needs to be pushed on by this anonymous person. Okay. For the sake of time, I'm gonna skip to another thing. I think this. Go ahead.
Can I just a little comment?
Sure.
We see that in the beginning of the Parasha, Jacob is called Yaakov. Later on, it goes into Israel. I know you like to analyze.
It's a hard thing to analyze, and you know, the scholars will point to the fact that these come from different sources. And the tradition, the commentaries will say, well, one reflects one side of the personality, and the other name reflects the other side of the personality. Okay. All right. So this dynamic of being on the outside and wanting to break in is the stuff of good drama. And I'm going to put up for a second. There was an Israeli series called Stockholm. It's a very funny little show about this group of friends. A group of friends. One of they're four friends or five friends, and one of them is a world-class economist, and he's up for the Nobel Prize. And the week before the Nobel Prize is announced, he dies. And so
I recommend it.
It's a very, very funny thing. And so he dies. And so the friends try to hide the fact of the death, so in case he gets the award, right? Because, you know, you don't get the Nobel Prize if you're dead. So they hide the news of his death, and in the end, he doesn't get the award. But what happens is that there's another person, a mysterious person who's very, very wealthy and loves them all, and he enters their life again after the death of this person, the death of the economist, and the group, the clique doesn't know what happened, and they don't know where he came from. And here's one of the last scenes of the show, which kind of tells you everything that you need to know. And I'll put it in, okay? So I'm going to translate. So his name was, sorry, what's the name was something Zohar. I forgot what the name of the person, the friend. He gives them a package. All the friends meet at a bar after the death, after they're finished up with everything, all the affairs, and the other person sends them a package. He was supposed to meet them at the bar and join together with them, but he didn't. He sends them a package. It's an album, a photo album of Tentura, a time in their youth when they were all together, this whole group of friends. He didn't come. Gershi Zohar, he didn't come. And this is a picture of all the friends, all the old friends, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. One of them is dead. And this is the guy in the circle, is the guy on the outside. Okay? So there are 5 friends, and one of them just died, the economist, and this one is the one outside. Okay? Look at this. There he is. That's the guy. Gershi Zohar is his name. He wants to be part of the group, and he's outside. And he didn't. And now she says, "Look, turn over the photo. There's something written on the back." Look for a second. Okay, I'm going to stop here. בסך הכל רציתי להיות חבר שלכם. Elana?
I only wanted to be your friend.
I only wanted to be your friend, right? This is the idea. The idea is that someone wants to break through. I want to get into this group. You've been said, you did everything together. You travel together. You dine every Friday night with each other. You have fun together. You share each other's stories and lives. I want to be part of that. And they did not let him be part of that. And he's very upset, and he goes back to his life, this very wealthy guy who's on the outside, and sends them just mementos. It just goes on for a second, nice music. Look at the puzzlement. Oy, oy, oy. Look what we did. The sorrow on their faces. By the way, these are the most accomplished actors in Israel. All of these actors, the shtisel actors, these are them. They're amazing, amazing actors. Woo, Double Glickman. What did we do? Look at we ruined a person's life. And she drinks a drink. She takes a glass of wine. Look at them. And then they go, okay, that's that. All right. So that, I see the theme. It's not the same, if the same verse would be at the Chayanochim Avakesh, but there is another interesting use of this in this song. This is an incredible song, and I'm going to do it right now here. Okay. I'm going to go back to the beginning.
את החיים אנוכי מבקש, תגידה נא לי, איפה הם רואים.
Okay, so that means, my brothers, I'm looking for you. Tell me where they are. Tell me where you are.
את החיים אנוכי מבקש, תגידה נא לי, איפה הם רואים. את החיים אנוכי מבקש
Okay, I want to talk about the music for 2 seconds. If we could do a whole little lesson on how the music reflects a certain kind of longing, and the music itself offers an interpretation of this verse. The verse is a biblical verse, but it's always that context of someone's personal life. I want to be connected to you. I want my brothers. I want to be connected. And in modern Hebrew, achai, you cannot get a more intimate expression of friendship than achi, right? It's bro. It's everybody, achi, bo, that's what a brother is. So he's gonna go into the first verse here. I'm just gonna translate. Ata achi, you are my brother. Tamid ohev otcha achi. I always loved you the most. Zecharut ba'am omek shelibi. It's engraved in depth in my heart. Ata yodeh, achim anachnu. We are brothers. Avshalo alachnu, even though we didn't walk, o kavashnu otam hashvilim, we didn't capture the same paths. Avsheyesh bikvar milim she'ata encha mevin, even though I have words that you don't understand now. Ka'atem zramim bayam, you kotam zramim bayam, like we're two currents in the sea. She'sachfunu likivun shanim, who've gone in different ways. Avdu li ikvotecha. I've lost your path. Koli akra ulai tishma. My voice, I cry, and maybe you'll hear. So this is about brothers or friends, best friends who have gone in separate locations. And then it goes to the next verse. Ata achi, you are my brother. Zocher ech ata v'ani. You remember how you and I, al oto adeshe v'achol, on the grass and the sand, sichaknu v'gadalnu, we played and we grew up. Vayom bitar milenu, today with our packs, en otam sfarim, we don't have the same kind of books in our packs. Al siftotenu lo otam apizmonim, on our lips, we don't have the same refrains and choruses. Ach besof hayom, at the end of the day, lo tomarom nisa'inenu, we look out at the same vista. Ke shekashim aragaim, as the moments are so difficult, lo tam shamayim narim kolenu, we lift up our eyes to our voices to the same sky. Shinet et marecha, you look different, and your sound is different, but I still hear you. So I'm going to give my clue here. I think is that one became, an interpretation. It's a song, so you can interpret it anyway. One became really religious, it looks different, carries around a different set of books, and one became secular and carries around the same books, a different set of books, and one is still really, it's a song about a rupture in a relationship, which is probably brothers. אתה יודע, אחים אנחנו.
אף שלא הלכנו, חיפשנו את אותם השבילים. ואף שיש לי כבר מילים שאתה אינך מבין, כי אותם זרמים בים שסחפונו לכיוונים שונים. עבדו לי עקבותיך, קולי יצא, אולי תשמע. אלוהים ממעטה, תגיד ענני, איפה הם רואים?
דחה, אנוכי מפחד.
תגיד ענני, איפה הם רואים? את החי, אנוכי מבקש. את החי, אנוכי מבקש. את החי, אנוכי מבקש. תגיד ענני, איפה הם רואים? איפה אני, אותו הדשא והחול, שיחקנו וגדלנו. ביום התרמילנו אין אותם ספרים על שפתותינו, לא אותם הפזמונים. אך בסוף היום לאותו מעון נישא עינינו, שקשים הרגעים לאותם שמיים נרים קולנו. שינית את מראך, השמיע את קולך, אותך אשמע. את החי, אנוכי מבקש.
So that's the song, and it's a very, I find a very moving song. I don't know how popular it was. It was a few years ago it was published. You know, do you remember at the beginning of when the three boys were abducted and they were later murdered? So this song was part of the whole memorialization of them when they were looking for the boys at the Chai Anochi Mevakesh, and this was part of that. Go ahead, Mike.
When the brothers chose up sides to see who would play in the baseball team, Yosef was always chosen last.
There you go.
And he just wanted to fit in, and he could never fit
There
in.
you go. It's for Charlie Brown. Yeah, go ahead, Marlene.
We don't see him trying real hard to fit in, though. He still has the coat of many colors, which he doesn't say isn't his. He isn't going to dress up like his brothers. And when he comes to tell the dream, he says it in such a way that he lords it over them, as opposed to say, you know, each of us has a dream of one sort or another, and let's look at why.
So I think that's a very kind of sensitive reading here, because, you know, what does it mean to differentiate yourself, and what does it mean to join with someone else? You know, identity, and Marlene, you're an educator, so you know this intuitively through, you know, the interaction with children. Identity formation is exactly about this. It's about trying to be like and trying to be differentiated from. And I think that dynamic is the dynamic at play. I want to be in the group, but I also want to be myself. And you have to be, you know, as a kid, you have to be very secure or confident or understanding of yourself to be a part. And I think there exists a moment in every life, in the life of every adolescent, where the adolescent is engaged precisely in that dilemma. Who am I? Who do I belong to? What group am I in? We see it play itself out in so many ways, you know, in youth, and to a certain extent, it plays itself out in adult life as well. After all, we are communal beings, we're social beings. We want to fit in and we want to stay out. Those of us who have, you know, slightly more differentiated personalities, you know, we're okay to stay apart. On the other hand, we always want to be, you know, part of a group. And I think that's the dilemma. Go ahead, Marlene.
Well, didn't his father have any servants that he could have sent out with the meal and to do the spying so that this kid could go out with his brothers?
I think that's precisely the point. The point is that he doesn't send out an Eliezer. He doesn't send out a servant, Eved. He sends out Joseph. Why? Is
But
he
Joseph
not?
doesn't rebel and say, I can't spy on my brothers.
He wants to. Hineni. I am rushing to the service. Because my father is finally giving me a job. He's finally giving me a project or a mission. Gittel.
Yeah, I was going to say that, yes, Father was giving him a job, and I think Yaakov doesn't really know how to father. So he doesn't really know that sending him to do this, it could be very complicated. He gives him a coat that's special. He separates him on the own, and yet he wants him to be part of that group. And he's allowing him to spy. He just doesn't know how to help him become part of that group.
It's a failure. It's an absolute failure of parenting. You're absolutely right. This is, you know, I mean, and you know, we do fall into the trap which we are presently in, which is, you know, trying to project the norms that we understand upon this situation. But I want to say, even in antiquity, there should have been a norm, which is like, you know, you don't do this. I mean, the whole Torah, the whole book of Genesis is like, you know, situated against that norm. Ilana, go ahead.
But Yaakov is actually following the pattern of his own childhood.
Yes.
His mother preferred him, his mother loved him more, and his mother did all these things for him. And doesn't he know any better? Or or what?
So obviously you can't break the pattern. Gittel, go ahead.
Yeah, we're doomed to repeat the patterns. If a child is abused, you say, oh, well, he knows how terrible it is, but that's not true. He grows up to be an abuser. So it's the same thing. This is what you learn. This is what you know. And you don't really know how to break out of that pattern.
What I guess we can say differently is it takes a lot of courage, a lot of mentoring, and a lot of reparenting to break those patterns. You know, therapy for people who are victims of those situations really is a reparenting kind of project. And so Joseph really, you know, will lose his father in this situation and be reparented, if you could say that, in jail, and reparented through Pharaoh. Pharaoh acts as a father to him, but as we'll see, that will be very, very complicated. Pharaoh himself will be a very complicated father, mentor, both, and also boss relationship. That's too volatile.
But by giving him strength, by actually making Joseph stronger and not the other way where he comes from.
Indeed. Joseph, we'll see. He's certainly not going to be the same Joseph. He'll be there. It's a complicated and ambivalent relationship that he will have with his father too, and likewise, you'll see that.
And yet, in the end, he knows his children well enough to be able to give each a blessing according to their own strengths.
So that is Jacob at the end of his life. You know, by the end of his life, maybe he has the proper insight.
There's hope for all of us.
There's hope for all of us. You know the joke about, you know, the woman whose husband passes away, God, you know, forbid, and she sees him decked out in the casket and says, "Finally, I got it right." Terrible. Anyway,
But
okay.
what about Ephraim and Menashe? Again, twisting it.
Yeah, we'll get to that. We'll have to leave that for another parsha. Okay.